nature of this high-speed cable capability is such that they don't use all of it for their system, and so they want to be able to rent or sell a portion of that cable to third parties to use to deliver residential and commercial broadband capabilities out in rural areas that are otherwise either not served or underserved. But a quirk in our law was opening the possibility for some very expensive lawsuits. Basically, they were getting sued for exceeding the easement. So these poles, when they were put in place, a lot of them back in the 30s, they got an easement from the landowner to allow them to go in there and do that. A lot of those easements were not written down, or if they were written down, they've been lost in the intervening years. And so they were suing them over a theory of expansion of the easement. We gave you this easement for electricity, now you're using it for broadband, you're going to have to compensate the landowner for that. Now that was never the intent of the original law, and indeed it makes no sense just on the face of it, because you've got a situation where the facts on the ground don't change. If they were just using the broadband cable for their electricity distribution systems, then no expansion of the easement theory was available. They were able to do that with no fear of lawsuits. Only when they tried to make excess capacity available for commercial or residential use was this theory coming into existence. So what we were going to end up with was a sequestered resource. A resource that's there, is available, but that no one can use because of this quirk in the law. So all my bill did was go in and clarify that this is within the original scope of the easement. This is within the original intent of the law, and that no remedy for expansion of the easement would be available. Nominal damages would be available, or if there's actually any damages to the property, actual damages are available. And so hopefully in the next 3 to 5 years, you will see several other co-ops that service rural Missouri being able to open that up and make that available to our rural communities. And I think that'll be a big deal, because we've got a lot of hospitals, a lot of schools, a lot of manufacturers, even farmers that depend on high-speed internet, being able to access that at an affordable and stable basis. And I think that this is going to be one good avenue that will do that, and hopefully will save the state a lot of money, because there's been perpetual talk about making a grant system or some kind of program to assist with the construction of this kind of infrastructure out in the rural areas, and that would just be a duplicative expense at this point if we could already do it through our co-ops.
Now, we see a lot on television now. I was just watching the Chiefs game yesterday, and at the Chiefs game yesterday, I saw commercials for McCaskill and for Hawley. I don't know if I've ever seen a television commercial for a Missouri House race. So can you tell us, when it's campaign season, what's it like to campaign? What's your prerogative when you campaign?
So most of the time, television doesn't make sense for a state house race, because it's just too small of an area. If I advertise on KY3, for example, I'd be going out to multiple counties, and I only serve a little piece of this one Green County. So typically that would be broad overkill. But I have seen television in house races, not really in this area, but it does occasionally happen, but it's pretty unusual. For me, campaigning mostly looks like going door to door. That's the most effective way to meet as many voters as possible, is to meet them at their doorstep, and it's one that most people actually like. You would think that people would be annoyed by somebody showing up on their door and trying to talk to them about state government, but I always get a pretty good feedback wherever I go, and so that's the mainstay of my campaign. That's also how you get things like yard signs. You ask people to put one out and grab their door. Other things that are effective, mailers. It's a good way, especially in this age of targeted mail, where you can just send mail to people who frequently vote. It's a pretty cost-effective way to get a message out. Radio ads. I did a radio ad the first time I ran 2 years ago. That's a pretty effective way, and it's much more cost-effective than television. And then events Springfield, although it happens a little bit, but especially in more rural areas, barbecues are usually always a hit. You can get 400 or 500 people to show up at a barbecue for $5 a head, and be the candidate and get some exposure that way.
What's door-to-door like? Do you just pick a neighborhood, go? What's your strategy?
So it's targeted again. So there are voter rolls that are available. Like you can get data on who votes and how frequently they vote and all that kind of stuff. And so you just develop a walking list based on that data, and you go door to door talking to individuals who vote. I mean, it's really just what it sounds like. You go to the door, you knock on it. If they come, you say, "Hello, I'm your state representative, Curtis Trent. I'm here today campaigning for re-election. I've got some literature with me if you'd like to have any of that. If you have any questions or concerns, I'd be more than happy to talk to you about them." And they'll usually say something like, "Oh, okay, well, thanks, appreciate you stopping by." So, well, if you do have any questions later, my contact information's on here. If you decide you'd like to support me, I'd sure appreciate your vote. And if you'd like a yard sign, I'd love to put one out for you today. And maybe 20% of the time they'll say, "Well, sure, go ahead and put one out." And I'll stick one in your yard, go to the next person.
I think one thing that surprised me that you said, I guess I knew it already, but it's just always shocking to hear it out loud, is that the Missouri State Legislature is part-time.
Yes.
This means 6 months out of the year. I'm assuming January to June. You guys are working your tails off. And then what's happening? What are you doing June to December? Are you working another job, or are you just, what are you doing?
Some people do. Some people work a regular job during the 6 months. I don't. I treat this like a full-time job, or at least I have so far. Law is kind of one of those professions where you can't pick up some work on the side, especially like appellate work, brief writing, things that you can kind of have a flexible time schedule. But there are a tremendous number of political events that go on around the state all the time, whether it's club meetings and activities right here in town, whether it's going out and talking to businesses, talking to individuals, whether it's dealing with constituent casework. You have individuals who are having a difficult time navigating the bureaucracy for whatever reason. Maybe they're a taxpayer and they're having problems with DOR. Maybe there's someone on Medicaid and they're having a hard time interfacing with that bureaucracy. Maybe they're a veteran and they have problems with accessing some of the state's services for veterans. Whatever it is, a lot of times if you have that kind of problem, a call from a state representative can kind of help unstick those problems. So I spend a lot of time doing that as well. And then there's some oversight committee activities that occur. As I mentioned earlier, like the Student Debt Relief Committee, we had a series of meetings in that interim period where we would go in, we would take testimony, we would try to develop ideas for eventual legislation. That all takes time. So I mean, it's one of those jobs where it's kind of like foam. It will expand to fill all available time that you want to allot to it. And so you can put as much or as little into it as you do. We're term limited here in the state of Missouri. If the people will send me back each time, I can only do a max of 4 terms or 8 years. And so I want to have as much impact and do as much for the people who have elected me as I possibly can in that period of time. Because I can always go and be a lawyer later. This is a really unique opportunity to serve the public, and I want to make everything out of it that I can.
What term are you on now?
This is my first term.
This is your first term?
First re-election, yeah.
And your terms, just for those in the room who don't know, 2 years long.
2 years.
And like you said, you got a term limit of 4 terms, which stands in contrast to the United States House.
Right.
Which is just however many times you get reelected, you're good to go.
Yeah. Which is kind of interesting. Even though I phrased it as a limitation on me, it's really a limitation on the public. Because it's the public that elects the representatives, and what term limit says to the public is that you can't elect the person of your choice if they've been there more than 4 terms in this case. So it's really a limitation on the public's ability to select their representative.
You personally a fan of the 4 terms? Would you adjust it one way or the other?
I think it's probably a little bit too short. There's definitely a learning curve for a representative to get used to all the processes, get used to all the systems. I mean, we have a 20 $29 billion budget in this state, and so just trying to plow through that huge amount of expenditures takes time to get a sense of where all that money is going, how it's being spent. It's really something that you lose a lot of institutional knowledge when you have an 8-year term limit. Right now, we had a big turnover this cycle. About a third of the legislature has termed out. So we're losing about a third of our members, and we're losing all the institutional knowledge that they had with them. And the other kind of troubling side effect of that is that it exaggerates the amount of power of the unelected parts of government. So the bureaucracy, especially, they become the depository of all that institutional knowledge. And so you have a new legislator, they come in, they don't understand how or why we're doing what we're doing, so they call in a bureaucrat that's been there for 20 years, and they tell them how this came to pass, how this happened. And so through the bureaucracy's ability to control the flow of information and just to simply stonewall a representative. If you're in your final term, good luck getting anything out of the bureaucracy. They're probably just going to tell you to pound sand because they know there's nothing you can do to them. You're going to be gone in another year and a half. So I think that's a troubling aspect of term limits that would be somewhat mollified if we had a lengthier term.
Allow me to throw it to the floor for a few. Anybody that might have any questions about public policy, state, or can we hit you with a couple federal questions?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if I don't know it, I'll just tell you I don't know it. So.
And or about his job in general. Yeah, your floor.
Well, I live in your district actually, so I live on the very south side next to the West Bypass.
Oh, okay.
So where I live, I can't like go for Springfield City, like things that go on.
Oh yeah, the
so
council.
So I guess I can vote for you since they you also represent Springfield district kind of as well. So like, is there like anything that can be possible? I can vote because I live in Springfield. Anything that happens in Springfield affects me. So,
Well, if you're outside, I mean that's that's kind of an old concern, an old problem that I've heard many times is there's. If you don't actually live within the boundaries of Springfield, then you don't get to vote on those Springfield issues, even though of course they affect you because you go to school here, you work here, you do a lot of your business here. So that's just one of the quirks of our system, and it's both a bug and a feature, as the programmers would say. So tying representation to geography makes a lot of sense in many ways because there are issues that transcend party divisions, that transcend Republican or Democrat or conservative or liberal. There are issues that are specific to that community. And so you want representation that is from that community, that knows the people, that knows those issues and can voice those issues in the larger forum. So that's the feature. And then the bug is what you just described. You're just sitting on the other side of the line. You still suffer all the consequences of the decisions, but you get no input into it. And so there's a constant tension there for sure. But you can certainly vote in my district. Hope you'll consider me when you make that decision. And there are things that the state can do to manage the cities as well. The cities are creatures of the state. They're created. Their charter is created by the state. And so, sometimes cities step over the line, they go too far on a certain issue. You can call your state representative and voice those problems and potentially get some redress on, depending on what the issue is. Curtis, yeah, I think you were maybe asked.
So you said you were that you read into philosophy, which just curious, like what various philosophy have you explored?
Well, I've explored quite a bit, but in relation to our experience here in America, I think some of the most important early philosophers for our country is Locke. His second treatise on government was, I think, very influential on the founders from like a political philosophy point of view. And then Adam Smith, I would point to as another one that was very influential from the economics point of view. And they were they were kind of crystallizing ideas that were coming, that were in the mix, that were really coming into their full force in that period of our history. And then just as a user's manual for our government, I think anyone would be benefited by reading Federalist Papers to see what the authors of the Constitution believed it would do, and reading the anti-Federalist Papers, which is what the detractors, the opponents of the Constitution, thought would be the defects. And I think if you read both of those works, you're going to find that both sides had some valid points. But then, you know, there's a broad range. I mean, I'd recommend anybody read, you know, a lot of the Greek and Roman philosophers, even some of the Roman histories like Decline and Fall, the Roman Empire that Gibbon published, probably like 100, 120 years ago. It's a very long, dense read, but Rome experimented with every single vice and degradation of government I think you could possibly experiment with. They had all the evils. They had runaway tyrants. They had out-of-control senates. They had out-of-control armies. I mean, it is really instructive as to human nature and what can go wrong with government and what we should look out for, you know, as we continue our experiment in self-governance. Yes.
Earlier you were talking about campaigning and the things that you do during campaigns. How often do legislators do like billboards and stuff? And is that cost effective?
I mean, it really varies. I mean, a billboard can be pretty effective. You have like a really high volume road, but you almost start to get back to because it's untargeted, you start to get back to the problem that you have with radio or television. If you do too much of that, you're going to be advertising to people who are outside the district. But there's a fair number that use billboards. I've used billboards before.
Yeah, I was running a campaign and I used billboards for that, and it worked out pretty well, but it was very expensive.
Yeah, and it's not the cheapest medium either. I mean, even a few months or even a few weeks is usually several $100s.
Yeah, I only did 1 week and it was several $100s. It was very expensive.
And then even with something like that, you probably want like a digital billboard.
Yeah.
And there's some difference there too between digital and the kind where they have to.
We did like the busiest intersections in Springfield, and it was the digital ones that like flashed for different things.
All right, I'm going to ask you something federal here for a moment.
Okay.
We've been talking here in class for a few weeks now about Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh. And what happened a week or two ago is that he seemed to be credibly accused of a sexual assault incident back in high school. And what just came forward last night, which some of the folks in this room might not know, is that there have now been at least 3 additional claims of past sexual assault from his past. In your opinion, should Brett Kavanaugh withdraw his nomination? Should the Senate shoot him down? Your thoughts?
Well, I'm not familiar with the 3 new ones. I saw one of the new ones this morning. I didn't know there were 3 additional new ones. So, I mean, it's going to depend on the full context of what's going on. I mean, we have statute of limitations in this country, like here in the state, for example. Only murder has no statute of limitation, and then I think it's only like the top, you know, like premeditated murder. Other crimes have a statute of limitations, not because the crime is any less consequential or any less severe after that amount of time has passed, but because it becomes increasingly more difficult to figure out what actually happened. So, in this Kavanaugh case, I think that we should try to do everything we can to figure out what actually occurred, to get any evidence that may exist. But at some point, there are other aspects of this, of how this has unfolded that are very politically charged and very concerning. The timing of it,